slide leading with clarity?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic.
So we're on Zoom, it's midweek, and you're there looking at me through your monitor. Well, at least I hope you are, and you can see me. I know there were a few people that just had their names there, but hopefully you can also hear me. You're probably also wondering what this evening has in store for you. With the title of Leading with Clarity, it's probably a good question. It's a broad subject. So for this evening, we've chosen to highlight and touch on a few areas, which, to give you a better feel for the flow, Ben will outline and talk these through in a moment. Some things we'll cover may well strike a familiar chord and really resonate with you. But whether that's the case or not, if you can listen out for what might be new things to you, and so you can tune in and adapt and adopt. So in some places, we'll be really focusing in on the detail, and other times we'll be looking at the broader picture and context of things, especially as where we can perhaps shine more light in terms of both our personal awareness, but also when we're communicating with others. So encompassing all of that, there'll be, as Tom alluded to, there'll be opportunities where we'll invite you to actively participate, and also moments too for some self-reflection. So on that note, I've got a quick intro as to who Ben and I are. So Ben, would you like to go?
Yeah, my name is Ben. I'm a coach and agile trainer and consultant. I've been doing this since about 2008 on and off. And Sophie and I have been working together for the last year, where we've put together a program helping people bring coaching skills into their everyday in the organisation. Sophie?
Yeah, I like Ben, I've obviously been working with him for the past year, but I've been in both the coaching and agile spaces for a number of years now. For me, it's been about building my toolbox so that I can be as useful and as helpful to both, well, to individuals, teams, organisations. A strong interest and influence, certainly in my early days of coaching, was through neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which some of you may have come across, or but I'm now a trainer. Anybody come across NLP? Thumbs up. Got to have a bit of action here. Yeah. So that's a little bit about us. So moving on.
So we'd like to help you get introduced to each other first. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you into some breakout groups. Just for a few minutes, and I'd just like you to introduce yourselves, and I want you to share what your experiences are of using coaching. So Tom, if you're able to press the button on the people's experiences, anything anyone wants to share.
Hello, Jan. Oh, hello.
Go ahead. Was that Jan? Was that?
Yeah, and Mario. Yeah, we had a nice group. I was the least experienced. I said I know very little, and I was with Louisa and Nikki. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Who are experienced the coaches. So varied experiences there. From my point of view, I'm here to learn because I come from a command and control business, so to speak. And I'll probably look up to these other guys who spoke to me a lot.
Don't worry. There's don't worry about the difference in experience. We've all got really useful things to offer tonight, and you'll see that as we go through the evening. Who else was gonna? There was someone else that was gonna share something there when Jan spoke.
Yes, it was me. I wanted to say that my observation and assumption to a certain extent of the fact that coaching is still not very well, how can I say, communicated about and explained and understood by many people and organizations has been confirmed. Yes.
Yeah, I can see that. Anything else? What else have we got to share?
Hi, this is Louisa.
Hi, Louisa. Where are you coming in from tonight, Louisa?
Well, from Toronto, Canada, but that is because I really love your company, Baliminal, and I train with Mark Summers to get my CSM professional and Zia Malik. So I always follow all the information from you. So I work in a bank, and I do both Scrum Master and also coaching. But this is what I shared with my little team a few minutes ago, that it does not matter how much experience we have. We always love to actually to learn from our colleagues, and it's always a new experience. So it's a continuous learning. So I'm looking forward to the information that you are going to share today. It's a pleasure to listen to.
Cool. Thanks, Louisa. I definitely echo that. There's lots of different experiences, and we've all got something to share and to offer each other. Anything else of note? Anything else that kind of was resonated with anyone in that group session? Okay.
I think
so
Nico had his hand up at one point, but he took it down, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry. No, I was just reacting with a thumbs up with what Louisa was saying about learning. With every interaction is a learning experience. So yeah, I'm a life coach, so I resonate with that.
Great.
Lovely.
Fantastic. Well, let's have a look at what we're going to look at tonight then, Sophie, shall we? So Sophie, I think we mentioned at the top, so Sophie and I have recently developed a new course which helps leaders bring a coaching approach to their everyday, and we thought this evening would be a good chance to share a few things that complement what we talk about on that. A few people, like in my group, there was a difference of understanding really what coaching is or whatever, and just as a kind of a high level, think about coaching as an intervention or a style of working that's meant to help create change, and it helps open people up to new perspectives or new learning. So with that in mind, we're going to look at a few themes that we think are quite important within using that. So first, we're going to start looking at something that we see and that influences every day, but probably we seldom think deeper about, and that's as cryptic as that's as detailed as I'm going to be till we get into that, but I don't want to pull the curtain away for that. We're then going to look at simple ways that we might adapt some of our language and some of the expectations we set for ourselves day to day. And then we're going to look through a way of listening and adapting our language to help promote change in the relationships and the things that we set for each other in our day to day. It would be really useful tonight if you have a pen and a piece of paper handy, because we're going to ask you to write some bits down, and it would be really good if you could do that. That's great. Now should we move on, Sophie? Should we get kicked off? So before we head off into those things, take a pen and a piece of paper, and I want you to just write down an important goal or a target that you have for yourself at the moment. And this will not be something I'm going to ask you to share, so don't worry, I'm not in the business of pulling anyone's pants down on Zoom on Tuesday night. But if you want to write down any kind of goal or a goal or target that you have set for yourself, or that is set on you, I'm going to give you
Heightening awareness. First, actually, let's just take an example and experiment with this. So this is going to be experimenting with Zoom a bit as well. So what if I said you know, one of your goals was you want to be healthier? Okay, so you have a choice. You've got Frosties or Kellogg's presented to you at breakfast in the hotel that we're not quite allowed to get into at the moment, but we've got Frosties and we've got Special K. So for those that aren't familiar with these cereals, the Frosties one is sugar frosted flakes of corn, and they've got a few extra bits on them. So they've got vitamin D and B vitamins and iron. So that's Frosties. The Special K, yeah, it's got crunchy rice. I'm reading upside down. Crunchy rice, whole wheat and barley flakes. And again, that's got some with fiber and whole grain, 9 vitamins and minerals. Okay, so we're going to try and do a poll with Zoom. So Tom, are you going to?
I've kicked it off. It's all right.
Oh, fab. Ben.
So you should see a poll pop up from Zoom. Fantastic. Can anyone not see the poll?
everybody? So if I end the poll, can you actually see that? Yeah.
Yeah, it should be shared, yeah.
So we had 2 for Frosties and 10 for Special K. Do I have to share results as well? Can you see that?
I think everyone can see that, can't they?
Anyway, we've got Frosties 17%, Special K 83%. So, you know, what do you think makes one healthier over another? Anybody, any takers? Why did you pick Special K?
I'm going to say less
Well,
sugar.
There's less sugar and more vitamins.
Yeah, less sugar.
Yeah.
Less sugar, more vitamins.
Yeah, good choice.
But we
Just
don't
really
quite
depend-
know how much sugar there is in Special K because he didn't say. So that is the trick.
So
You eat the entire box, you're going to eat less of it with Special K because it's smaller.
Oh, right, yeah, because it's 500 grams. They were just the blank sort of images I got, and yeah, although these 2 are smaller as well, but somebody picked Frosties. What were some of the reasons for you picking Frosties?
I picked Frosties because I assumed that it was a trick question.
Okay.
Because the Special K is trying to appeal to the kind of fitness, but often when you kind of get those things, when you dig, if you were to dig a bit deeper, you find it's got all sorts of maybe things that aren't so healthy for you as well. Actually, like at least my wife tells me, I don't look into things like this, but she told me that apparently like sugar is actually more healthier than sweeteners for whatever reasons, because it gives you cancer or something like that. So I assume there was some reason to think so Special K is going to give me cancer or something like this.
I think it just, you can't really say because it depends what else you eat. Like,
Okay.
you need to have whatever it is you're missing in the other meals.
A happy meal or anything else you're eating. Yes. So this was just your choice at breakfast or wherever. But probably whatever you chose, your choice is likely to be based on assumptions and beliefs at this point. So going to your point, Mark, you know, a sweetener is worse than sugar and things like that. So the answer, which is healthier? Yes, it actually depends. So if we actually have a look at some of the detail with the Frosties and the Special K. So hands up if you think, you know, which Frosties has more calories in it. I can't see most of the screen actually, so hands up if you think Special K has more calories in it. Because you think it's a trick question, Mark, is that it? Well, in fact, they're both the same for a 30-gram portion. So they're the same on calories. What do you think about fat? Which is higher fat? It's gone very quiet.
We can't have that much fat in, right, their cereal.
So yeah, Special K will have more fat because there's more grains in it, allegedly, and they contain fat, whilst Frosties is just corn, which doesn't have that much fat.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there is more fat in the Special K. It's probably no surprise then that carbohydrate there is similar, but yeah, it's a different type that you've got, which sugars are 11 grams. So fiber and protein and salt, again, you probably get the healthier. Trying to remove the poll actually, right. So then it goes into the vitamins. So you've got quite a few changes and things there. On the whole, Special K is probably more appealing from that perspective. But from our original question, so you want to be healthier, there are actually varied responses. So what is your focus? Is it a low salt diet? Or is it a higher protein diet? and according to who, you know, healthier than what. So we're actually trying to dispel some ambiguity by going from the abstract, which was, well, I've made some assumptions about these two, but actually getting to more of the specifics. So through asking questions and taking a closer look, we gain more detail and choose what type of detail is actually pertinent to us here. So it allows us to gain more clarity and alignment in our thinking of what we choose or do or focus on, or either as an individual or those conversations we have. So yes, there's several linguistic patterns available to us, and this is just one, dare I say it, sort of flavour to it. But we're heightening awareness and looking into detail. So this is all around getting from the abstract, so it's a cereal, the woolly and the fluffy, to specific. Okay, this was an example about breakfast cereals and whatever, but it's similar when you hear words like faster or simpler or better. What are we comparing it to is often one of the linguistic questions we can ask. So for example, the website needs to be faster or better. Faster than what? Better than what? Better than our competitors? How much faster specifically? Or which parts of the website? Or where is this, this quest or ask for it to be faster coming from? Is it customer research or where? Or is it the board? So whenever we have a comparison, it's actually then asking, you know, where the missing bit of the comparison, what are we comparing it to? Another facet of this is actually when there's difficult or great big daunting tasks for someone. So, okay, I asked you to choose between two cereals, but actually if it's quite a big thing, breaking these down and getting to specific smaller chunks means that you probably have more alignment with the conversation you're having with the other person. And it actually gets probably more simplistic and simpler to actually know exactly what you're going to get. So whenever we have sort of goals or outcomes that could be fluffy, try moving from the abstract to the specific. Any questions? So who's going to try Frosties next? Okay, we're going to go into the second part. And Ben?
I have a pang of almost like post-traumatic stress when Sophie, even though we've practiced this, when Sophie mentions making a website faster, because that was the bane of my last years as a software engineer, being asked to make this abstract idea of getting a better or a faster website, and no one really helping us find out the specifics of what we meant by that. So I can already feel the hairs here just kind of tingling. Anyway, another thing that we like to think about, if we move to the next slide, is that when we set expectations for ourselves and other people as well, we often have a tendency to focus overly on the negative or the weaknesses that we have. And that's something I definitely have. I have a very strong negative internal monologue. My coaching tutor called it her itty bitty shitty committee. I can definitely relate to that. So it's quite natural. We often focus on the negative or the weakness when we're looking at something that we want changing. And as a result of this, traditional psychology has followed suit. We put labels on things. I'm depressed, I'm this, there's a dysfunction here or there. And it's thought by some people that this can kind of stop us moving forward because we overly think about our ailment or our problem. Positive psychology is a movement that's kind of kicked off around the turn of the millennium, which is trying to turn that on its head. And it's the idea that rather than focusing on the negative part, that we can maximize our positive outcomes by focusing on the strengths, the things that we would want to change, what we want to be, what we could be. And a lot of coaching thinks about this. If anyone's had a coaching session with someone, I can see Nico, the life coach, is nodding there. So this is the difference between thinking, how can I be well and happy? You know, how can I get to that well and happy state versus what am I going to do now? I'm unwell and depressed and miserable. So it's just focusing a little bit on the positive, the thing we could move to in that way. So what this means for us in a coaching world or even in a management world in our day-to-day is that, especially if we've got smaller chunks of work or goals, just as Sophie's been describing, is it's worth looking at them again and looking at how are they framed. Are they framed in a way that's going to settle us and make us focus overly on something we don't want? I don't want to be depressed anymore. Why am I going on about it all the time? Or is it focusing about something I want to be? Sophie sometimes uses this analogy of sending me to the supermarket and telling me everything she doesn't want for dinner. What would I actually get her for dinner? I'd have no clue, because we spent all the time focusing on the stuff she doesn't want to eat. I'm yet to go shopping in real life for Sophie yet, but maybe after lockdown we'll do that.
Probably don't want me to Cooke, actually, yeah.
So you see that just that subtle difference just helps to look a bit wider and get that sense of resourcefulness and the possibilities that we could have for ourselves. Okay. So why are we interested in this? So if we have happier people, happy people generally get things done. Unhappiness and stress in the workplace especially can create a lower quality environment. It means we lose people, it means we don't achieve our aims, we get this sense of not moving anywhere. So achieving some goals and setting goals that have meaning and play to those strengths and those places that we want to be, rather than settling on where we're miserable and where we're unhappy, can really help contribute positively. And the best leaders will work with that. They'll help harness that positivity in their leadership style. You'll see that actually if anyone people have read any kind of great leaders books, there's a lot of stuff about kind of looking forward, moving towards where we want to be, not we're a terrible company, let's stop being a terrible company, or whatever. Okay. So in this thing here, this is showing that if we have a happier workforce, all of these other things can happen for us. We can get that increased productivity, we can get those better sales, and we're less likely to get things like burnout, or we're less likely to have ill health, because there's lower stress hormones in our staff generally that can cause health ailments and problems later on. Okay. So with that in mind, I'd just like us to take another look at the goal that we wrote down earlier. So pull that back up and have a little read of it. So we just wanted to take a short pause just to revisit it and just read through it and let us have a little think, you know, what might come up for you? What new information is emerging? Have a look through and just see if there's anything you might want to refocus or change on that. You express goals for yourself, I think is part of the heavy work as kind of maturing as a well-rounded adult, I suppose, certainly for me at least, I can see. But it comes easier to some people than it does others.
Okay, so hopefully something has emerged there for you. So the last thing we kind of want to touch on is exploring preferences through language. We're often told that building rapport is generally a good thing. Rapport is good understanding of someone and an ability to communicate with them well. So communicating well, many of you will already be familiar with active listening in boosting rapport and communicating well. For those that aren't familiar with active listening, as the name suggests, it's about actively listening, not waiting for the person to finish what they're saying, ready to jump in and say the next thing. So it's about fully concentrating on what is being said rather than just passively hearing the message of the speaker. We're not going to actually touch on active listening per se right now, but we're going to do another little exercise, and for this we need a piece of A4 paper. So get to hand a piece of paper, A4 paper, because we're going to tear it up in a minute and draw on it. So once you've got your piece of paper, I'd like you to see if you can tear it up as shown. Origami and stuff.
We're going to make the perfect Christmas table decoration tonight with the coaching theme.
Then I ask you to, you can either draw lines on it, like this one, but on the little bits of paper, I'd like you to put those numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thank you, Jan. I can see tearing your paper, so that's really helpful for me. Yes. Yeah. Okay, and just get your piece of paper. So those with cameras on, I'm going to probably gauge where we are from you. Okay, I'm now going to ask you a series of questions. I'm going to do a sample question first, and then a series of 5 questions, which I'd like you to answer for yourselves. So note the first question is a sample one, and I'm going to talk you through it. So the example sample question is, I most easily communicate what is going on with me by the way I dress, the feelings I share, the words I choose, or my tone of voice. And with these numbers, we're actually going to record the number 4 next to the phrase which best describes you, then 3 against the next best phrase, then 2, and then finally 1 regarding the phrase that least describes you. So for example, if I was scoring this, the results I would get may be in this order. And so I would position them on my table like that. So the one I resonate most with is the feelings I share. I put a 4 next to, then a 3 next to the words I choose. Then it's the way I dress, and then my tone of voice. So I'll have 2, 4, 3, 1. Okay, with me, hopefully, so far. So I'll be giving you various letters, revealing various letters against the options there. So V, K, L, or A. And what I'd like you to do there is, if the V is next to the 2, so the top one, then move the 2 into the V. Likewise, for the 4 goes into the K, the 3 goes into the L, and the 1 goes into the A. And then, I'm not sure if you can actually see it on there, I'm hoping you can, but you've got this 2, 1, 4, 3. Just if you can write it down on that bit of paper. This is an example run, yeah. And then you can scrunch up collect your numbers together, ready for the next round. So any queries about that before we go on to the real questions? I take silence as you're all with me. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so ready with the first question. Question 1. I make important decisions based on gut feelings, which sounds the best, what looks the best to me, or precise study of the issues. So I want you to put 4 next to the one that is most like you, best describes you, and so forth. Okay, so for the gut feelings, it's a K. Which sounds the best is an A. V is what looks best to me, and the L is a precise study of the issues. So what I'd like you to do is, whatever you had in that first one for the gut feelings, put it under the K, and then the second one, put it under the A, and jot down the numbers in those columns. Okay, brilliant. I'm leading on you, Jan. So the next question, question two, during an argument, I'm most likely to be influenced by the other person's tone of voice, whether or not I can see the other person's point of view, the logic of the other person's argument, or whether or not I feel I'm in touch with the other person's true feelings. So again, put 4 against the one that best describes you, and so forth. Okay, so the first one is an A, the next one is a V, next one's an L, and then we have a K. So put what value you had in the top, like under the A, and so forth. Might be a stewardess, steward or whatever.
I'm Debbie McGee at this part, aren't I?
Yes. Yes, keep reminding me of that. Okay, so it looks like you've done that. So you've jotted down what values you had under A and V and so forth. So on to question 3. I most easily communicate what is going on with me by the way I dress, the feelings I share, the words I use, or my tone of voice. Okay, so the top one's V, top one's next one's K, then L, then A. Okay, on to question 4. It is easy for me to find the ideal tuning and volume on a stereo system, select the most intellectually relevant points during a debate, choose superbly comfortable furniture, or match rich colour combinations. Okay. The top one is A, next one is L, the next one's K, and the next one's V. Okay, about to go on to the 5th and final question, which is, I am very attuned to the sounds of my surroundings, adept to making sense of facts, figures, and data, very sensitive to the way articles of clothing feel next to my skin, and very responsive to colours and the way a room looks. Okay, the first one is A, next one is L, next one is K, and the final one is V. Okay, just moving on. So they were really a few questions to give you some insight into your current most favoured channel of communication. So let's look into more depth as to what the VAKL stand for. Many of you might have a good good clue on that, but I'll refer to them as representational systems or rep systems as well. So the first one is V for visual. So quite often we'll use in the language see, look, view, appear, show, picture, focus, hazy, things like that. Often people that actually use this representational system a lot will memorize by seeing pictures. That's how they enjoy, well, their preference to processing. They have trouble remembering verbal instructions, and they like seeing the bigger picture, like seeing it drawn out. So they just go, oh, can't you just draw me a picture or a diagram or something to help me understand? So an example, this is fairly verbose. This plan just seems rather hazy and blank in places. Can we take another look and see what light we can shed on it to ensure it reflects the big picture and to see what we need to focus on next? That's very sensory language visual. Then the next one is auditory. And here we hear, listen, the sounds, all right, tune in, rings a bell, oh, that resonates, the silence is deafening. Quite often people that have a preference, or even in the moment, for auditory, they're very good at learning by listening. They can repeat things back to you easily, and the tone of the voice is very important for these guys. So they would typically say this, as I've got an example here, this all sounds good and really resonates with me. It was music to my ears when I heard about that. There was a harmonious chatter and a definite beat of the same drum when Fred articulated this to the board. Very auditory language. The next one is kinesthetic. So this is all around words with feel and touch and grasp and slip through and make contact, throw out, gut a feel, unfeeling, get a handle, it's solid, any of that sort of physical language. They quite often kinesthetics like memorize by doing or walking through things. You know, can you walk me through that, your plan or whatever? And they're interested in whether things feel right. So an example here would be, we've hit a sticky patch with our launch. So until we can really lay out the problems and get a grasp of the situation, we'll be in for a rough ride with this audience. So that's using a lot of kinesthetic sensory language. The last one is logical. It's a rep system, but not a sensory one in the same way visual, auditory and kinesthetic are. And NLP terms are often auditory digital too. So the words like logic and sense and reason and think and analyze, due diligence, system, understand. So there's a lot of, quite often there's a lot of internal dialogue going on for those who have a preference of this rep system, but they're memorized by steps and sequences. They've often agreed to a degree of tech know-how. They may appear dispassionate and calculating, but in a positive sense. They're actually interested in whether something makes sense. So somebody articulating in a logical way was, there is no logic or common sense in this. Through due diligence and analysis, we really need to, oh, sorry, I can't read it. We need to really understand the reasons and ideas behind this option. It's very sort of neutral. So what I'd like you to do is add up your totals. So you would have had those 5 questions and figures for those 5 questions, and you'll get a total for visual, total for auditory, and total for kinesthetic, and total for logic. So if you just want to have all those totals should equal 50. So just take a moment to tally those up. Okay, so hands up if you're more visual, or your visual was the highest one that came out in that exercise. Okay. What about if the highest score was auditory? Okay. What about kinesthetic? Yeah. What about logical? Okay. So just notice in the room that that there's differences, and that is also note that it's a current snapshot and a moment in time. It's very simplistic and light touch, but there's a definite different preferences in the room. A few questions to give you some insight into your current, i.e. right now, most favourite channel. We actually use all of these representational systems, so I'll go into that a bit more in a moment. But has anything, what insight does this give you, if anything, for yourself and for your communications?
So we can just speak?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so it's something that I know about myself through several years of coaching, which is a really low level of connection to my body and physical sensations, and kinesthetic connection to the environment around me and to the people around me. So compared to logical and visual. So confirmed finding.
And do you often find other kinesthetics or people using kinesthetic language and whatever easier to sort of communicate with?
Much tougher to communicate with.
Oh, much tougher. Okay.
However, much more empathetic towards what I'm talking about compared to logical people.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I just looking at this, reflecting this, I don't know what to say about this yet because I need to digest this. If you ask us the question up front without sort of doing this test, I could have my hand cut off that I'm a visual person, but my visual score was 7, which was lowest by far. Which I just need to kind of reflect. I'm just sharing just I wonder whether this is this is just a model, and models can be wrong, and you can swing your moods and all sorts of things can happen. So I think I need to reflect on whether this is where I am literally here now, or whether this is kind of who I am, if you see what I mean. But that was interesting. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Jan. And yes, I'll build on that. And please remember, this is not about putting people into boxes, but raising your awareness that there are people or preferences at any particular one time. So I don't want boxes in this person is a visual or I'm an auditory and that's all I do. We actually definitely use all of our rep systems pretty much all the time. We do have a tendency sometimes to use one particular rep system in a particular context, say, and there are some people that have a strong preference for using one or two of them more than others. But quite often, if we can match this sort of language, then that helps with rapport and communication. So anybody else want to say anything?
Just looking in the chat, Josh has said he's what is it, logical. He says basically I don't listen. I'm sure that's not the case, Josh. It's interesting.
But it's listening on another level of if somebody if I'm really visual and somebody's just talking instructions at me and I go, please, can you just put a diagram together? And likewise, somebody with lots of diagrams, you go, please, can you just talk that through with me? Talk it through, help me understand or give me some clarity in the format that I really gel with. So yeah, it is a very basic test. I mean, it's been around for a few years. I didn't alter any of the questions, so stereo's a bit old. I couldn't find the source of where it came from, but I've learned it in the early days of NLP, and it's just another piece to focus on and raise our awareness of the diversity of groups that we're dealing with, or working with, or communicating with. So there's various other cues. Some of you may have come across some other behavioural and postural ones, and eye-accessing cues in how we process. But yes, we use this, why be aware of it, to actually help rapport and help those we can communicate with. And yes, you can listen out for the dominant sensory words in what a person is saying, and use those words in the same representational system when you reply. So it's a subtle way of boosting that rapport. You know, for example, when I looked at it, I drew a blank, and you can say, yeah, I see what you mean. It's on the same basis. You know, does that ring a bell with you? Yeah, I like the sound of that. So where two people are really using two rep systems, there's a slight mismatch in the communication, because each person has to sort of try and translate it or alter it in some way that helps them. So try and work with the other person if it'll help them as well. Also, when working with a bigger group, be aware of the many representational systems in the room. And we just saw various hands go up and go, yeah, I had higher in that, or whatever. And what I try and do is try and weave them all into Better Connect. So if I'm facilitating, I like to include visual and auditory and kinesthetic. I had one Scrum Master in Cardiff, and his team was pretty much rebelling against him. Anyway, I worked with him, and he was very, very auditory, practically no visual at all. So where other teams would put stuff on the walls and use visual and auditory and kinesthetic, he was only doing everything in auditory, telling them what to do, discussing it all and whatever. And this, I mean, it was a simple exercise, but that really opened his eyes up, and he goes, so not everybody thinks like me. No. So when he started then building up and trying to get more things visual, he had better responses with the team. So try and weave all three of those particular ones, the V, A and K, into your facilitation, your workshop. So you might have seen at the beginning of the evening, leading with clarity. We could have had, you know, leading with resonance or getting a hold of things or whatever, but we just decided clarity and leave it at that, and we'll discuss why we called it that. But some of the things I said right at the beginning, so some things we cover may well strike a familiar chord and really resonate with you. And I said those so that actually those that were stronger auditory will go, okay, yes, I can relate to this. Likewise, I put in some places we'll really be focusing in on the detail, and other times looking at the big picture and perhaps shine more light. I was a bit more verbose than normal, but that was all to connect with visual, people with visual preferences. And likewise, I've kind of wove them all in. We've chosen to highlight and touch on a few areas to give you a better feel for the flow. So that was all kinesthetic language. And there was also some logic in there, like Ben will outline and more auditory talk through in a moment. So that was all stuff I kind of said. So that kind of, any questions about that?
Yeah, so Jan here again. So thank you for that. I guess it's easy to Google, so I may do some research myself and see whether it's there. But is there any kind of references if I wanted to dig a bit more deeper into this model? Because I'm kind of thinking about, I got a team of Scrum Masters, 5 of them. I really like the example you've given about the fact that, you know, you have a Scrum Master, and if you're applying one style, just as one type of stimulus, and your team may rebel against that style. So I'd like to share that knowledge with my Scrum Masters. So where do I go for more information?
Well, you can certainly Google predicates, P-R-E-D-I-C-A-T-S. I mean, it's the first revision of NLP as well, and it's slightly changed, but what it does for me, like in any of these exercises, is raises the awareness that people, it's not just information sharing, but they digest it in different ways. There's another one I do around eye-accessing cues. So this was a toss-up, you know. on what to do for this exercise, but eye accessing cues, if I'm looking up, I'm generally trying to visualize something. So if I ask a question and I see somebody looking up, I will leave them to process, and then when they come down, they've finished processing and they will come out and talk. Yeah, if I'm doing, or I'm feeling, seeing somebody looking down here, you can sense that they're actually feeling something. So there are lots of other body cues. There's auditory, and there's visual construct and visual recall as well. Construct that side, recall, but you have to calibrate. So that's perhaps another area to look at. But this is all around tuning up and raising our acuity and awareness so that we can perhaps comment on it, or I've noticed that there's nothing on the walls or whatever. Because it was interesting at first with that particular Scrum Master, because there were two options they could have done. So I went straight for the pen, the flip chart, option 1, option 2, do you mean this? Do you mean that? Because he was just doing it all verbally, and all these people were, struggling. So I was trying to get verbal as well as, would you like to add something as well? A bit of kinesthetic walking around. What does it look like from over here? So does that help, Jan? Cool. Anybody else?
Yes, it's sorry. Jan, go ahead.
I was going to say the same to you. I made this one fairly brief. I've seen visual, auditory, kinesthetic before, and it's something I've been aware of, but not logical. And I guess I'm struggling slightly to see I can see the first three are kind of roots into the brain. You can identify your ears, what you touch, or your eyes. That's straightforward. But logical kind of seems to be like a bit on the side. Is that true, or am I misunderstanding something?
It's a bit about auditory digital in this. In it could be your inner voice going, well, does that make sense to me, or whatever. Although I'm verbalizing it out right now, but yes, it's not one of the 5 senses that come in, but we do make sense of things and use some other logical stuff. Is this common sense or due diligence, analysis? It's more sort of action things like that. Does that? I know we're going to move on.
Sort of. Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I've just seen Ben going, yeah, we need to move on. Thanks for that.
Louise's point just before, because she was going to speak as well.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. And what we do actually, we are presenting the business cases. So talking to now back to consulting or to banking world, we always are presenting the business cases in all these 4 levels. So we do have charts for the visual people, right? Because we make, as my first degree is in graphic arts. So for me, I am extremely visual. So when, for example, Mark or Zia, they are presenting in the coaching, they are presenting their graphs or drawings and so on, I get it immediately. But we are also in a business case presenting the text for auditory people, also some kinesthetic and the logical. So the logical is the numbers for the finance folks and all these things. So the reason why we are presenting basically the same information in all these 4 levels is for to allow people who have their preference to actually understand quickly the information. So it's very, very important. But the visuals basically nowadays is almost 90% of the communication, and that's where we need to put actually the accent on.
That's nicely put, Louisa. And it's definitely with the logical, with the numbers. If I'm describing, somebody's house, and from a logical point of view, it'll be it's got 2 stories, it's this high, and I'll have all that detail in it. But yes, I think we need to move on. So I will move on. But thanks for your questions. Great.
So let's look at the wider picture of tonight. There, I was using a bit of visual language there. So I just want to take a bit of time just for us to reflect on what we've covered. So we've talked a little bit around being specific, so turning things from an abstract world to a more specific thing, and being really clear what we're trying to get out of any kind of broad language. We've looked at, do you want to just move the slide along, Sophie? We've also looked at how we might kind of focus things or revise the goals that we set for ourselves and other people to play to strengths and where we want to be, rather than dwelling on a box or a position that we're in right now. And we've also looked just now about these preferences that we have for language. So what language can we use that would appeal to people's different types of looking, or different ways of looking at the world. So I just want to take a couple of moments, have a think, write down for yourself, what does this mean for you? What's the thing this means when you go into your business tomorrow? What does this mean for you with anything, any project you've got going? What's it mean for when you speak to your colleagues? Have a couple of moments, just write some things down for yourself. Just want to mention, just again, this Coaching Skills for Leaders course that we have up. We're doing a discount at the moment where we can get, we've got a special rate if anyone is interested in joining the course. This is it's an experiential learning based course. We form a cohort with the people that are taking it, and over 6 modules we look at various different aspects of coaching, but not just as a here you are, let's be a coach. It's actually, what is coaching, what are the practices, but actually how can we bring that into our day-to-day in a natural way that is useful to the people that we're working with. So it's not high up there in the theory. It's okay, this is the theory, but how could we use this day to day in your everyday life? So there it is. I was wondering where I thought I'd maybe lost the code. So if you're interested, if you go to the Blumenau site, there's a special rate of £995 with that code there, and that's active until the end of next week if anyone is interested. And there's a flavour there of the kinds of things that we're looking at. So with all that through tonight, the kind of last thing really for me to say is a big thank you for coming. Thanks for bringing your sharing your experiences, your insights, taking part in some activities. This is Ardita. If you want to hear from me and Sophie, that's where to find us. So thanks very much, and we're happy to stick around for a couple of questions if anyone wishes.
Stop sharing. I can see nothing.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.